Everybody. I'm starting this kind of mission impossible, that is to tell you in 30 minutes the cross-cultural marketing basis or fundamentals being enough clear and complete. So I ask for your understanding and let's go. And so first of all, I show you my slides. And let's start talking about cultural context. Talking about cultural context means just to talk about some important scholars that define different approaches to cross-cultural marketing. But first of all, I want to show you, just to introduce the points, what we can consider elements of culture. There are many elements of culture, but just to start, let's consider the material production. For example, the spoons that you see, one is African, one is, let's say, Western, and the other one is Chinese or Eastern. And as well as the symbolic productions. As you know, these are symbolic production for good luck. They are very different in different countries. Just to show you how can be different the cultural approach in many things that we do. And let's start with the first important scholar, that is Edward Twitchell Hall, that was an American anthropologist. So we have an anthropologist point of view in this point. And he started studying the Redskins in the USA reserves, Indian reserves, in the 20s and the 30s. And what is important about the studies of Hall is that he defined two main cultural contexts, what we call high context cultures and low context cultures. In high context culture, there are many contextual elements that help to understand the rules of the game. As a result, is that much is taken for granted, and so let's say the words are not so important, but the context is more important than the words that are exchanged during the relationship. This can be very confusing for a person who does not understand the context, obviously, and does not understand the culture. On the other side, we have what we call low context cultures. And in a low context cultures, very little is taken for granted. And this is that we don't need more explanation, but we have to follow just the words that are said during the communication of the relationship. So there's a less chance to be misunderstood. Just to show you how high context and low context culture are spread in the world, you see that on one extreme, you have Asian cultures, and you have the flag of Japan. And on the other side, you have what we call North European cultures and American cultures, and let's say English-speaking countries. So German-speaking countries and English-speaking countries mainly. And it means that they are direct, I mean, low context culture, direct, speaking half the time, and then understanding the answers and speaking again, quite directly. On the other side, South European, Arab, and Asian mainly, you have to understand the context of the communication, otherwise you don't understand anything. As you know very, very easily, in Japan, no one is saying no to you, while in the Germany or just in the northern countries, they say clearly no if it's not. In Japan, you have to understand that the no, the yes that they are saying is in reality a no. So it's not totally the contrary. So the question is, can you read the air? So the ability to read the atmosphere in a business meeting with the high contact people. And the messages that are not explicit during the meeting. Edward Hall told something about the time, and he distinguished two kinds of cultures considering the time. The monochronic time cultures and the polychronic time cultures. The monochronic time cultures, it means that they do one thing at a time, and so they are absolutely planners, and they schedule everything, and it's quite familiar in United States, in Germany, and in low context countries. While polychronic time means that the human interaction is valued over time, and there's a lesser concern about getting things done at a certain time, in a certain date, with a strong punctuality, but just to get the things done in their own time. And the relationship is more important than the facts. Just to see, you have action, do many things at once. I'm speaking about polychronic actions. Focus is, they are easily distracted. They think about what will be achieved, put relationship first, borrow and lend things, and base promptness relationship factors. So you immediately can understand what is Italy and what is Japan in this way. Japan, despite the fact that it is a high context country, as Italy is in a middle way, they are monochronic people, while Italians, they are polychronic people. And so there's not a good point and a bad one. Monochronic is perfectly if you can have a stable environment, while polychronic is more flexible, so they cope better with unstable environment and changes and so on. Another point is the interpersonal space, high territoriality or low territoriality. Some people are more territorial than others, and people with low territoriality have less ownership of space, boundaries are less important to them, and so on. High territoriality is typical of individualistic cultures, while low territoriality is typical of collectivistic cultures as well. Italian is an individualistic culture, we'll see later on, and Japan is more collectivistic culture. Just to make you an example about the space, these are two gardens, one Italian Renaissance garden and the Japanese Zen garden. And you see that it's totally different than the concept of space. While the Italian garden is full of things, the Japanese garden is full of space. And from an Italian point of view is empty, from a Japanese point of view is full of space. This is the point, and we can understand how can be different two cultures considering many parts of our life. These are the books I suggest to you if you want to go deeper in the whole Edward Hall thoughts and approach to the cross-cultural differences. The second scholar I want to show you, I want to present you, is Gert Hofstede. That is probably the most used in the business environment. His model is the most used in the business environment. Is an influential, really Dutch researcher. He passed away just last year. And just because he started his approach, he was an engineer. He started his approach from a business point of view, because he was employed in IBM at the time, at the beginning of the 60s. And the point was, why, this is the question that IBM was wondering, why facing a similar problem, just the same problem, the managers of IBM that was spread around the world, they act differently in different cultures. And so Geert Hofstede started to analyze why the cultures were different and why the behavior of the people was different. And so he defined some cultural dimensions. And the cultural dimensions are at the moment 6. One is power distance, so the degree to which the power is divided within and accepted, this division inside a society. And the second cultural dimension is individualism versus collectivism. So you can see that individualistic people act differently from collectivistic people, that they care more about the group, compare the individualistic people, they care more about themselves. And masculinity versus femininity, that is not a gender point, but is just some values that are more defined. My opinion is that the definition is not so clear in a way, but this is the definition of the Hofstede model. Masculinity is a bunch of values considering achievement, more aggressive, success, and so on. While femininity is a bunch of values considering agreement, care of people, etc. And so you have different societies, feminine societies and masculine societies. And the other 3 dimensions are uncertainty avoidance. So if the members of a society feel uncomfortable with ambiguity or uncertainty, and long-term versus short-term orientation, that is the way the society is thinking in a long-term basis or in a short-term one. And indulgence, that is a new one that was inserted in the last 10 years, and a society that allows relatively free gratification of basic and natural human drives related to enjoy life, etc. I want to show you the differences between Italy and Japan. You can go to the Hofstede website and you can have all the comparison that you want among the countries. So in power distance, Japan and Italy are almost the same, while they are different in obviously individualism and collectivism, while Italy is more individualistic than Japan. And also in masculinity, Japan is a very masculine society, so achievement, success, and so on, even if also Italy is enough masculine society. You can see that, for example, the lowest masculinity index is in Sweden, that is the most feminine society. And uncertainty avoidance, Japan is quite afraid about uncertainty and ambiguity. Italy as well, but not so high. And obviously, Japan is a long-term society more than Italy, and about the indulgence is not so different. So, summarizing, let's say that individualism and collectivism is just a big difference. And so you have also a series of differences considering these 2 parts, where they live, security by social network or by home life insurance, and so on. And as well in the masculinity, high masculine society, men are buying decision, women shop for food, fewer filter for coffee makers. I don't know why, but it's a worldwide situation, so probably not in Italy, we don't understand that. Fewer products homemade, purchasing for showing off, etc., etc. And just to finish, long-term orientation and short-term orientation. There are other differences in Japan and Italy, of course. And these were the three more differences, big differences I found between Japan and Italy, following the model of Stede. This is the book, if you want to go deeper in this thought. Another point was done by Shalom Schwartz. Shalom Schwartz was an American psychologist. So you have an anthropologist, whole, an engineer of Stede, and you see a lot of numbers and percentage and so on. And now a psychologist that is Shalom Schwartz. Shalom Schwartz created a model considering mind values, harmony, embeddedness, hierarchy, mastery, affective autonomy and intellectual autonomy, and the egalitarianism. And then spread this kind of group of values through the countries. And you see where is Italy and where is Japan. So Italy is close to other European countries. So it's close to harmony, egalitarianism, and intellectual autonomy, while Japan is close to mastery and affective autonomy, and is in another part of the map, of course. And this is another differences between the two cultures. The last one I want to show you is Richard Lewis. That is a British linguist. So you have an anthropologist, an engineer, a psychologist, and a linguistic person. And so different approaches, of course. And the idea of Richard Lewis was just to consider three main points, what we call linear active cultures, multi-active cultures, and reactive cultures. And you see where is Italy is close to multi-active cultures, and Japan is too close to reactive cultures. Why Germany, Switzerland, Luxembourg, they are linear active, as USA, UK. So we can consider that what for overall was a low context culture, for Lewis is a linear active culture, while it's spread into split into high context culture in multi-active and reactive. And so, as you see, multi-active is warm, emotional, loquacious, impulsive, while reactive is courteous, amiable, accommodating, compromiser, good listener. And so you have the two cultures, Japan and Italy. And you see how is this is spread around the world. China and Japan and Vietnam, they are very reactive, as is the Far East in general, while Northern Europe, United States and Canada and South Africa and Australia, so English-speaking, and Russia, English-speaking countries are linear active, and the multi-active are the other countries. As you can see, Italy is spread in two, in the north and in the south differently. And this is the book that you can read if you want to go deeper in this kind of concept. I'm trying to run a little bit just to consider everything just in time. The other point I want to show you is just the country of origin effect definition. And the country of origin effect is a psychological effect when customers are unfamiliar with the product, and so they have to consider something else to judge a product because they don't know the product. And what they can consider, the country of origin, and let's say, creating a sort of halo effect to the products coming from the country. And this is what we normally do in general. And the country brand dimensions are connected to the tourism, heritage and culture, the value system of the country, the quality of life, and if is a country good for business or not. So this is the last ranking we have available, just because after 2019, everything was stopped by the COVID-19, and so we don't have more updated data. And so you see that Japan is considered the first country in the world. This is a research worldwide. And then you have Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, Finland, so the Scandinavian countries, Germany, Austria, Luxembourg, and Italy is on the 14th place, is not so bad. Considering the World Bank ranking is 9, so it's a little bit better in the first 10. And you see how the countries are judged in general. So Japan has a goodwill everywhere, and Italy is not so bad anyway, but is less the others. And in particular, if you analyze each part, so the value system, the quality of life, the good for business, the tourism, the heritage and culture, the made in, we have Japan in a good position in good for business, in tourism, heritage and culture, made in, and Italy is in tourism, is the first in tourism and heritage and culture compared to the other countries. And this is a ranking in 2019. But just to go a little bit deeper in the concepts, the products for Germany are most often associated with the attributes of high quality and the security standards, while products from Italy that top marks of uniqueness and excellent design, as we can expect, and products for Japan are associated with the attribute of technology, and this is the highest score in the entire world. And then you have products from Switzerland, the status symbol, because they consider the watches, for example, even if it's changing anyway, and products from Canada for sustainability, that is more and more important in the judge of the people. I show you another ranking considering different industries. Unfortunately, I have the date only on 2014 because after that it's quite difficult to find other researches, but it can give you an idea about how is different the perception of made in country of origin in different industries. So for food and beverage, for example, Italy is just similar to France on the first places, while Japan is in the middle. For personal care and beauty, Japan and Italy are quite similar in the perception of the word. And for automotive, Japan obviously is a little bit more than Italy, but Germany is on the top. For electronic goods, Japan is on the top and Italy is on the bottom. And this is the main differences. In fashion, of course, Italy is better than the other countries. You see USA, because fashion is not just top fashion or just luxury fashion, but fashion in general. And so you can have other brands that are American in what we call more basic fashion. And in luxury, Italy is higher than Japan. So the country of origin about Italy is fashion, luxury, and food and beverage mainly. That is the what we can expect in general. And while for Japan is electronic, automotive, mainly, but Japan is good in average situation. So just to conclude my speech, I want to show you something about how to enter in a country that has a different culture. So the entry mode of the companies. Considering our studies that are focused especially on the Far East, we can consider what we call acquainted markets and non-acquainted markets. An acquainted market is a market where the customer knowledge is quite high, and they can understand and evaluate correctly the quality proposed by the company and by the competitors. Is normally a segmented market, so mature market. The competence are acquired using products and in a sort of learning process through the years, and is both a collective and also a social experience, because they speak each other and they listen for suggestions, to peer suggestions. Then what we call non-acquainted markets are markets where the customers, they have not sufficient knowledge about the products just to be able to evaluate them, and the product is new for the market. And this is when a new product from another country or a new brand from another country is entering in a new market. There's a different customer culture. So the way they buy and the reasons why they buy is different. And in general, big brands awareness is dominating, because big brands means that they are guaranteed by the general knowledge about a big brand compared to smaller brand or just a known brand or less known brand. And there is a different distribution logistic infrastructure. So we can consider that an Italian company has as an acquainted market, Italy market, and for a new market is entering in Japan market. What they do normally, they follow what we call mirroring strategies. It means that just because they don't know what to do in a different culture market, and they don't know the culture, and they don't want to know the culture because it's too complex especially for a medium-sized company, what they do is just to replicate what they are doing in their home market. And so the headquarters in Europe does not understand or accept what was successful could not work in another market. And they say, oh, we have many years of experience in these markets, and so this is the best way to do. And they pure replicating the domestic organization mode and the domestic way they make business. And so they replicate routines, products, marketing mix in general, the same product, the same brands, etc., etc. And we have some experiences, and I follow a thesis on the furniture, about the furniture, Italian furniture in Japanese market, and we saw the same situation very frequently. And so they are looking for what we call an ethnocentric market in a different culture. So it's absolutely a paradox. Offering the products to the more sophisticated part of the market, they hope that one part of the market could understand because they are not culturally defined, but just that they are in a sort of international approach. But this is just an hope. Normally, it doesn't happen so frequently, or just for a very, very niche part of the market. And so this is the model we developed about that. You have a business model, you replicate it, entering a new market, in a foreign market, and you started a sort of exploration phase to understand the market. And after that, you can have two choices. One is waiting for a concentric market, hoping that that market will modify everything going to the home market direction that it is absolutely impossible to happen, but they hope this, or just to adapt the product to the market. When they adapt the product to the market, they make something new. And we saw that many times this innovation is an innovation that they bring to another market or home market or other market in the world. So this is a sort of a process in innovation that is innovation by internationalization, innovation by different cultures. Different cultures force the company to think differently and innovate the product in a way. So the mirroring back effects are entering a new larger market. That means not only increasing sales and revenues, but just to open a sort of strategic window. And entering in a different cultural market means just to accept a challenge and find a way to innovate, just not only in a technology sense, but also in a marketing sense. And so the mirroring back is just the effect of innovation due to a different culture. And more recently, we added another part in this model. You see the model is similar to the first one I show you, but we discovered that the market, the new market, become acquainted about the products and the offer of the company, but in a different way, because they are affected by the different culture. And so they are acquainted differently. And this differently acquainted market is a sort of a stimulus just to increase the innovation, change the mindset of the company. And the company can innovate in this way. Just to conclude, I show you my book as the book that you can use if you want to understand a little bit more easily and less running what I said in 30 minutes. And this book is not available at the moment because it will be available in Italy in January. So it's bright new, and if you like this kind of subjects, you can read it. Okay, this is all for me now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. It was surely a very broad but yet effective presentation today. If you would like to ask questions, I just remind everybody that you can write to Eleonora in chat. And in the meantime, we can already start with some of the questions we've received. So one student, is this okay, Professor?
Yeah.
Okay, so one student asks, do you think that globalization has brought to a certain uniformity of cultures?
Yeah, okay. This is a point that I'm quite interested in, and it's a good question, really. The first article about globalization was written, and it's very famous, that is Glocalization of Markets. It appears on Harvard Business Review, and it was written in 1883. And in this article, the author, that is Theodore Leavitt, was saying that the world was going towards homogeneity in general. But this was not happened. Really, globalization is is something that can occur for some parts of, but not so many parts of the market. But in general, the cultures, they modify the global offers. And they use the global offer. I have many examples about that. They use the global offer in different ways for different customers, for different uses, and is really, let's say, attracting and beautiful to see how different cultures, they modify a global approach of the companies. But anyway, some global approach exists, but this is different. Consider only considering just the social media. The social media are spread differently in different cultures. In Japan, you have different social media compared to Western Europe, and in China others, and so on. So the globalization is not perfect as they thought at the beginning. Let's say, luckily.
Indeed. It may
I have a book of this, is in print, in press, sorry, and but it's in Italian anyway.
Globalization may have led to strengthen differences, cultural differences as well.
Yeah.
In some cases.
Yeah, the title of the book is in Italian, La globalizzazione disattesa. Okay.
Okay, so moving on to the next question. Most of these series, okay, so how do you think all these theories can be used effectively in an international business? So referring to the cultural theories you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation, how to use them effectively?
Well, how to use them effectively? First of all, you have to use this just to try to understand where you are. So if you are in a low context culture or high context culture, because we have normally a sort of ethnocentric approach to the world, just because we refer to ourselves. And we say that, okay, I make you an example. As you know, in Japan, I received many yes that there were no, but I was aware that the yes could be no. Otherwise, you enter in a big confusion. At the beginning of my work career, I was working for a company that was having a deal with a Japanese company, and every time they get out from the meeting room saying, oh, they say yes, it's okay, everything, they say yes. And the day after, they come out again, they say, why they say yes, but also yesterday they say yes. Why they say yes, and they want to re-talk about the matter, and so on, because they didn't understand that yes was no. And on the contrary, I had some Dutch students. They were so low context countries that I considered that they were offending me while they were asking me some questions. But it was only the direct way to ask the questions, okay? And if you don't know that, you make a lot of mistakes. And consider also for, you have those models just to understand where you are. When you understand where you are, you can understand what is said and what they want to say to you.
Thank you. Moving on, always referring to these theories, a student asks, most of these theories have an ethic approach. Can an emic approach theory be used in cross-cultural marketing?
Yeah, you can use different approaches, of course. My suggestion is just not to be too let's say, too rigid in these approaches. What I learned being in different countries is just to be flexible and just to change the approach considering the situation. I suggest a situational approach. You have to know many approaches just to know which is the best one to use in a particular situation. This is not a general suggestion I can do because I can give, because obviously it's so different if you are in United States, or if you are in China, or if you are in Vietnam, or in Russia, or whatever. Also in Germany, it's different, of course. Obviously, in Europe, there's not such a big difference in the countries. But in other countries, I suggest just to understand, as I told you, to understand where you are, and then you choose the right one. What you consider the right one. Consider also the situation. Consider another point, that the world is changing every day. And that is the example I can make, yeah, like example in the last years, but I don't know in the future how it will be, because the world is changing every day.
Indeed. So another point you mentioned in your presentation, which I found very interesting, is the country of origin effect. How strong is the Italian product's country of origin effect, and how to measure it in some way?
Yeah, well, it's quite strong in some industries, as I show you, especially in fashion and in design, of course, but not in food or just in furniture. We used to say that Italy is the 3 F's country: food, fashion, and furniture. But this is not true all over the world. This is true in Europe, maybe in the United States, but not in China for sure. I was surprised because I made a research just to know which was the country of origin perception of Italy by the Chinese people. And we interview just young people, so not very, let's say, old-fashioned people in a way, just to see which was the new perception. And surprisingly, the perception was that Italy was the country of chocolate. The country of chocolate, said. Yeah. Oh, okay. In our perception, it's Swiss or just the Netherlands or the Belgium, but for Chinese was Italy because of the success of an Italian company in chocolate that was Ferrero. And the Ferrero success about just one product that was Ferrero Rocher was so big that Italy was connected with the chocolate. And so what I mean is that the country changes along the countries. So what we consider in Italy as our strength point is not considered, could be not considered in other countries. And so you have to understand in that particular countries, which are the perceptions of the people about the Italian products. That they can change because they follow the success of some companies normally, of a group of companies. And then, but I don't want to go to be too long, but there is another approach that I didn't mention, that is what we call country sound branding. That is Italian brands that are not Italian. They sound Italian because they want to reach the credibility of Italian products sometimes. Okay, and you have this point in each country. Also in Italy, when you want to consider some Italian companies, they use German names, or some Italian companies, they use American names as Diesel or Replay and so on, just to sell products that could be better sold if American or just if German and so on. And this you find along the world in every country. In Korea, I've seen Pronto Caffè, that is Italian coffee shop, or just in China or in Japan as well.
Thank you very much. Just one last question. Is there some marketing surveys conducted on the nowadays Japanese generation Alpha as future customers and future managers going on at the moment? And if yes, is this research or is there research made by Foscari students on this?
Well, I don't know exactly if there's should be, but consider that we had 2 years in our refrigerators. And so 2 years in a refrigerator means that we don't have any information from, let's say, more recent than 2019. And this is a problem because probably there were some changes, because it was not just a simple life during the last 2 years. And so it could be very interesting just to make a research just after the COVID-19. And I think in the next year, at the end of next year, probably, we have some information that are really reliable about the new generation, X generation, Alpha generation, and so on, because they suffer differently the COVID-19, and they have a different perception of the world for sure. So I don't want to say some silly things about this point.
It is a very fascinating area, topic of research, and I think we can all contribute with our personal background and skills.
I think that the students of Japanese, they can do that even because they know the language. I don't know the language. And if you don't know the language, you don't know the country. That's the point. And so it's so important just to know the language.
Thank you very much for your time today and your very insightful presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then. Lorenzo, are you ready?
Yes, good morning, everybody. I can share my screen, maybe. Just a second. Okay. Can you see it?
Yeah.
So thank you, everybody. I really want to thank Gesshin for having me today. It is a real honor for me. And my name is Lorenzo Duca, and I just graduated in Languages and Economics of Japan with a thesis on global brands and strategy of positioning in global markets. So today I'm going to speak to you about global brands and the importance of creating a strong brand identity in the global market. So just to break the ice, I want to do a little experiment with you. I want you, this experiment have been created and carried on by Nadia Travasoli, which is the Professor of Marketing of University of London. And I would like you to think about a brand that recalls you to the word magical. And if you want to, you can write it in the chat box so I can read it. And I give you 20 seconds to think about that. So a brand that you link to the word magical. Okay. Okay, I can see many answers. Yes, okay. Okay. Okay, thank you. I give you 2 seconds more. Okay, I'm sure, and I saw that many of you have thought about Disney. And this was a little experiment because basically what you have just experienced is the power of a brand, of a global brand. So we are all from different backgrounds, and people from different backgrounds actually perceive Disney as magical. And this is what global brands actually do. So transmit and broadcast a message and a value two different people around the globe. But how is that possible? Maybe is your question. So let's do a step back. I'm going to give you some definition, but what is a brand? A brand is a name, term, sign, symbol, design, or combination of them intended to identify the good or service of one seller or group of sellers and to differentiate them from one competitors. And this is the definition from the American Marketing Association. Furthermore, Kotler, which is the father of modern marketing, calls branding the act of endorsing to a specific product the power of a brand. So I gave you these two definitions, but let's make an example. So maybe you all know the Fiji water. The Fiji water is a famous brand, an American water brand from California. And I don't know if you ever tasted it, but from my personal point of view, it was just water, simply water, yes. And but from consumers all over the globe, Fiji is not just water. It is perceived as pure, healthy, and natural. And this comes from a sophisticated branding campaign that Fiji Water did. And so nowadays, Fiji is linked and connected with some concepts apart from water. So pure, healthy, and natural. And this was an example of what actually branding is. But creating a brand is not an easy process. It's a time-demanding and difficult process sometimes. It also begins with the brand definition. So defining the brand, the values of the brand, and also the promises of the brand. Then we have the brand positioning that we will analyze afterwards. So how I want my consumers perceive the brand and see the brand. Then we have the brand identity. So the identity card of the brand. So everything that concerns, I don't know, logos, slogans, symbols, everything about that. Then we have the pricing. So decide the right price to adopt in a certain country, in a certain territory. Then we have the design that is called the frontman of the brand. So the packaging, the colors, the layout, everything that is a design and is and serves to sell the product. Finally, eventually we have the style of communication. So the way I speak to the consumers and the channels I use to speak to the consumers. So we can say television or, I don't know, internet, social media, and so on. But by now we spoke about brands in general, but what are global brands? Global brands are those brands who are perceived and can be seen as powerful from all over the world. Someone says that global brands are a lingua franca for consumers all over the world, in fact. So hereby, I reported a table from Harvard Business Research that says that the decision of purchasing a global brand comes from different aspects. So the quality signal, the global myth, and the social responsibility. Now we are going to analyze them one by one. So speaking about the quality signal, simply when a consumer see that other consumers buy that product, the consumers are more prone to buy the same product, of course. And when I buy something from a brand that is famous, I have a reduced risk perception. That means that if I buy something that comes from a famous brand, I don't feel the risk as much as buying something from an unknown brand, for example. So I want to make you a question. Is it easier for you? It is safer for you buying something on Amazon or from an unknown site? So maybe you all know that Amazon is one of the pivotal strategic characteristics of Amazon, so guaranteeing a reduced risk perception. Furthermore, another aspect I want to stress is the global myth. So when purchasing a global brand, consumers wants to feel part of a common village. What does a common village mean? So they want to feel are belonging to the same group of people with the same values in a certain way. So they want to mirror themselves in other culture. I insert an image here, which is "Play has no limits," that maybe someone of you knows. Like, this is the slogan for the latest PlayStation 5 marketing campaign, international marketing campaign. So "Play has no limits" campaign is based on a style of communication which is pretty similar to Hollywood blockbusters. And this is an aspect that can actually help people to mirror themselves in a common village, in a common situation, which is a common culture, we can say. And the third aspect, which is pretty interesting, is the social responsibility. In fact, global brands tend to tackle social issues and have a strong influence on the society. I insert two images hereby. So one for Uniqlo, which will be a company that we speak in our third seminar. But however, Uniqlo is a Japanese fashion firm, and they created this kind of promotion based on eco-sustainability. So maybe you all know Doraemon, which is a blue mascot. They created a green Doraemon just to symbolize they are thinking of the future. So they are transforming their future step by step. And this is one aspect. The other aspect is that global brands have a strong influence on society, but directly. So, for example, Yamaha, in this case, gave to some children in Thailand some flutes in order to start playing instruments. And that was a direct action they did to promote education, for example, in Thailand. So we spoke about global brands, but let's make a small framework. Let's speak about global consumers. So hereby we have the top 10 global consumer trends of 2021 from Euromonitor International, which is an interesting agency website. I recommend you to download it because this is free. And I selected 4 global consumers characteristics of 2021. So global consumers care beyond revenues. So they want the firms not to be so focused on revenues. They want, of course, firms to tackle social issues. They want firms to be active on a social with socially. Furthermore, global consumers are critic and cautious. That means they always want to buy the right thing. They are sophisticated. They tend to read reviews from websites. They tend to speak each other about their purchases. Then global consumers are digital. As also the Professor Tiziano Vescovi previously said, coronavirus has brought sensitive changes and also a sort of digitalization of the society. And so global consumers are now digital, and they tend to use social media, social networks, as well as internet, of course. Finally, they are obsessed with safety. That means that they want to eat healthy food. They want to buy safe products, safe clothes, for example, and so they are prone to spend a little more in order to have more safety back. Okay, so I spoke to you about global brands and global consumers, but I created a slide here that is called the culture dilemma. So how to approach different cultures and how to create a common brand image. So nowadays we can see like consume as a culture, the culture of consume, with a series of subcultures, such as the local consumer culture, the global consumer culture, and the local consumer culture. Each of these subcultures can be associated with a specific strategy of positioning. So the way I decided to sell my products in this situation in relation to culture. So local consumer culture positioning strategies, global consumer culture positioning strategies, and local marketing strategies. So speaking about local consumer culture positioning strategies, the companies that adopt this kind of strategies make use of images with a strong cultural value. They mainly conduct the marketing campaign in the local language and target local markets. For example, here you maybe all know the Algida, which is the ice cream company. This spring, Algida sold an ice cream called Magnum Inferno, and this product was sold only in Italy, and targeted only Italian people. The marketing campaign were conducted in Italian, and they made a strong cultural reference by creating the Magnum Inferno, because this ice cream was created for the 700th anniversary of the death of Dante Alighieri. So this is a specific reference to the Italian culture. On the other hand, we have global consumer culture positioning strategies that some companies adopt and doing the opposite. So they use standard images with universal value. They conduct mainly the marketing campaign in English, because it should be considered as the language that you use the most among this kind of strategy, and universal market as target. So they target universal market. An example, I put here an image of David Beckham from Maserati, which will be another company that will be present in our seminar number 3. So Maserati decided to select David Beckham as a global brand ambassador. That means that Beckham is well known generally from people from different countries and from different cultures. And so they decided to create an uniform, a standardized message in order to transmit their values, in order to promote their cars. So this is an example. This was an example of how some companies decide to standardize their message in order to target a universal market. But from 2000s, some people, some marketers had the need of adapting some global firms to local markets. So this is Douglas Dufton, which was the former CEO of Coca-Cola, and he said we should think global but act local. That means to adapt the global brands to local needs. So I made an example here of Coca-Cola selling in Japan. Many of you, of course, can read what's written, but there's written Saitama design. So design of Saitama, which is a city near Tokyo, near the Tokyo area. But Coca-Cola created various bottles for the promotion in Japan of Coca-Cola. We have the Tokyo design, we have the Osaka design, and if you will have the opportunity to go to Japan, you will find them in convenience or in supermarkets. So global plus local means glocal. In fact, global marketing strategies should be adapted to meet local needs. So we can have both a standardized or localized message, so a style of communication, or a standardized or localized product. So now I'm gonna speak you about that. Speaking about the glocalization of products, so a company that actually have a unique style of communication, but an adapted lineup of products. I wanted to point out here McDonald's. McDonald's, for example, in Japan, maintained the same style of communication. So the slogan remains, "I'm loving it," but the products are slightly changed. For example, here in the foreground, we have an hamburger teriyaki. Teriyaki is a typical Japanese sauce, and this is a Japanese specific product for McDonald's. On the right side, we have an advertisement, promotion of rice burger for McDonald's. So there's written, "Tadaima, okaeri nasai, go hamburger." That means welcome home. No, I'm home, welcome home, rice burger. So that's pretty funny. And so in this case, McDonald's changed the bread, the bun of the burger with some rice, some grilled rice. And this was an example of how some companies standardized the style of communication, but change the products. On the other hand, we have companies such as electronic companies that work with products that are difficult to adaptize, that tends to adapt this style of communication. So I made an example here, Apple. As we can see from the video, this is the typical promotion for Apple in Europe, in the United States. It's based on a style of communication which is minimal. It's based on showing the characteristics of the computers and so on. But now I want to show you how the same products in the same year were promoted, for example, in Japan.
し足も知りたいし運の悪さも運命か知りたいし君の思う僕は僕の思う僕よりいいやつなんだな I am 主人公生かして
Okay, so maybe I can't see you, but maybe you are laughing. And this was the promotion for Apple Macbook Air in Japan. And as you can see, the style of communication is adapted. In fact, they tried to use animes instead of the minimal design of MacBook to promote their product in Japan. And this is an example of a company that actually have a standardized product but a localized style of communication. So a deep knowledge of the target country is fundamental to improve consumer experience and brand performance. In the international market, many aspects should be taken into consideration, starting from culture. This is a quote from always Philip Kotler. So what I want to highlight here is the fact that starting from culture, for example, from languages, we can learn a lot from other countries. And so everyone is fundamental when creating a strong marketing campaign. In fact, many companies are now hiring a heterogeneous group of people. Of course, they are hiring always marketing analysis or marketing strategists and people who are actually working on numbers, for examples, but also people that are learning new cultures or are proficient in foreign cultures. And as you may know, learn a language means also to learn aspects of the culture. And this is fundamental for knowing better and to create engaging and effective international marketing campaigns. I want to end up my exposition, my presentation with a quote by Walter Lippmann. So culture is the name for what people are interested in, their thoughts, their models, the books they read, and the speeches they hear. And yes, we are all made of culture. The things we think are culture, the things we do are culture. And so even people who study culture actually can be essential, can be fundamental for the creation of international marketing campaigns. And all of you, in a certain way, can be a small tile in a big puzzle, which is the international marketing promotion of a product. So this was the end of my presentation. I really want to thank again Gesshin for the chance of exposing it. And if you have any question, please feel free to ask Eleonora, and we'll be pleased to answer you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lorenzo. It was a very interesting presentation and the message was very strong. While we wait for other questions to come in, which I can see they are, I would just like to ask you, what was it like to present here today with Gesshin? I know you were very excited.
Yeah. It was an incredible opportunity from my point of view, because everything comes from an hard work while writing the final thesis. And the opportunity that Gesshin gave me was to let others know about my final dissertation thesis. And I think this was a wonderful opportunity, and also a wonderful way to give voice to students. And so I will be always grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah, and as I don't think many of you who are listening today know, but Lorenzo was a bit of a pioneer today, as we decided, it's been quite a long time, but we wanted to bring both students, professors, researchers, and business people, people who are actually working at the moment, and to further expand the dialogue on the topics today. And I think it really worked. I'm sure many enjoyed your presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I received a direct message from Professor Mariotti. Thank you for your question. I directly answer your question. The Macintosh promotion was for the year 2015. So was the lineup for those years. The year in which Apple changed their lineup for MacBook, basically. Okay, if you have any other question, please.
Yeah. One question is how to avoid essentialistic and stereotypical marketing campaigns like the controversial Dolce & Gabbana campaign in China 2018.
Oh, yes.
I'm sure everybody is familiar with.
Okay. So as I was previously saying, it is important to create an heterogeneous group of people that actually can be proficient in what they are doing. So basically people that can actually know the culture, the target culture. And I think this is important in order to avoid, for example, stereotypes or stereotypes that cannot be used, such as the example William just did of Dolce & Gabbana. So everything starts from the knowledge, the deep knowledge of the culture from my personal point of view. And of course, this could be a synergical work with other marketers. And so creating an engaging marketing strategy. Yes, that's my point of view. So be proficient and really know the culture you are selling to. And also Professor Tiziano Vescovi said everything starts from language. So language is pretty important in this case.
Yeah, as you said, it's one of the aspects that makes marketing extremely interesting as a subject. There's a lot going on. It's not just data analysis and targeting a specific product to a specific audience or a specific message to a specific audience. It's how that audience receives it. And it involves knowing the culture as well as the language. Okay, so moving on, you brought up the example of the Coca-Cola bottles, which were adapted to different places and tourist spots in Japan, as well as different prefectures. Do you think that, in light of the fact that Japan is trying to revitalize its prefectures, using a global positioning strategy, particularly effective?
Mhm. Yes, to be honest, because in particular, it could be also a way to promote, for example, by selling products that are glocalized. Like big brands always have a deep voice among consumers. So consumers tend to carefully watch at what big brands do. So basically, if in Japan, for example, they create a specific product for a specific place, for a specific a local product, it could be that many people from maybe different prefectures could be interested in that product. Just to make an example, a fake example, to be honest, but creating, for example, a Coca-Cola designed for an unknown prefectures. I don't know, the Gunma prefecture Coca-Cola could be a good opportunity and a good maybe and a good spot to start a promotion of that prefecture. And actually, some prefectures are doing it, if I'm not wrong, because actually they are maybe creating some promotion with anime. And so they are, for example, promoting the Nara prefecture, which is pretty famous, of course, but with One Piece, for example. And yes, they are already doing so.
Or maybe even Kumamon, which has become a bit of a national sensation in Japan.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, it's a very interesting approach, and also it's shed light on the differences between what Professor Vescovi was talking about earlier, that maybe medium and small enterprises will tend to go for a mirror strategy, doing what they do best, while global and very big firms can instead afford to glocalize or localize their products. So it's a very different approach. But I would like to ask you if there is maybe, how can I say, a way that medium enterprises or small enterprises could potentially control their brand image and localize effectively their products.
Okay. Just this is my experience, to be honest. So I'm gonna report my experience. I saw that many companies, like small and medium enterprises, try to start becoming global by opening a pop-up store, for example, or flagship stores in foreign countries. And this is valid for pop-up stores, for example, of Japanese firms in Japan, as well as for Japanese firms in Italy. For example, here in Milan, I've seen a pop-up store for Japanese furnitures, and this is could be a way to let people get in touch with a foreign brand, and so to create an engagement between local consumers, and the brand itself. Then we have some other strategic strategies, such as the adaptation of some products, or the selection of some products. For example, these pop-up stores could bring to the foreign country the products they think would sell the more in that country, and not the entire lineup. But this was just my experience. I've not background about that.
Well, although it might be your experience at the moment, we are seeing maybe, as I said in the interview we had the other day, more and more Italian small companies, medium companies using flagship stores to effectively internationalize, instead of asking big import-export companies to deal with all of that for them.
Yes, of course.
So this might be a future key trend to bear in mind. Thank you very much. It's almost 12.
Okay.
Let me check if there are other questions. Okay. It seems, this is another question. It seems that Culture 2009, starting from culture, may be a bit contradictory to Lippmann, individual culture. And how do you interpret these two perspectives? What would you suggest to a global luxury fashion company that wants to enter the Japanese market? If language is enough, so better would be the higher mother tongue employees or consultants. So basically, do you think that if a global luxury fashion brand wanted to enter Japan, why not hire locals instead of maybe people with knowledge about the local culture and language?
Okay, I can answer always with my experience. I have the opportunity to speak with some HR, and so the creation of a team of people that can actually work abroad. And for example, many companies are hiring people that belong to the local company, and trying to broadcast the company's values in the target market. So they hire local people, of course, for example, in their stores, because it's important to have people that can actually speak the language and communicate, of course. And speaking about the luxury company, I would, from my personal point of view, hire, yes, a mother tongue, or a person that is perfectly proficient with the language and can transmit the real value of the brand. So the product has been endorsed with some elements, and everything comes from also the training of the staff. So give the staff the opportunity to learn the right values of the brand. But this is my personal point of view, and thank you for the question. It was pretty complicated, however.
Yes, I'm sure that in a small amount of time, it's hard to answer these very broad questions. Anyhow, it's now 12, and I'd like to thank everybody for participating today. It was a pleasure. I'd like to thank again Gesshin Student Association for making these seminars possible. And I would like to remind everybody that our next seminar will be on the 10th of November, and we'll focus on trade between Italy and Japan. And then we'll have the third seminars divided into separate meetings on the 19th and 25th. So don't miss any one of those. Today's event, today's seminar was an introduction and will help you to better understand what's going on in the next seminars. So don't miss out on those. Thank you very much again. And I would like to conclude today's event.